Jason and I had known each other since we were little. He was the boy who always had the answers, the top student, everyone's pride. And I was just the girl who grew up next door, quietly watching him shine. People often said we were perfect together, but I never believed it. Jason's world was filled with light, and mine with the small, ordinary shadows of everyday life. When we reached our final year of high school, everything seemed to be falling into place. Jason had his heart set on Stanford, and I worked hard, hoping, foolishly, that maybe, just maybe, I'd end up there too. Then came Lena, the school beauty. She was lovely, the kind of girl who made every head turn. But behind that sweet smile, there was a quiet desperation. She was failing her exams, and everyone knew it. One day, Jason told me he wanted to help Lena cheat on the entrance exam. I remember the way my heart dropped. "Jason," I said softly, "that's illegal. You could ruin everything you've worked for." He looked torn, but in the end he listened to me. He didn't help her. We both got into Stanford. We studied, graduated, and, like it was written somewhere in the stars, we ended up together. Our life was peaceful, simple, almost perfect, until it wasn't. The day I went into labor, Jason refused to take me to the hospital. His eyes, once so gentle, had turned to ice. "Desperate?" he said coldly. "You deserve it." Lena was more desperate that day in the exam hall. Those were the last words I heard from him before the world faded away. And then, I opened my eyes again. I was back in my old room. A familiar scent, a familiar morning. The calendar on my desk read the same date, the day Jason told me he wanted to help Lena cheat. For a long time, I just sat there, trembling. I had died and come back to the moment where everything began. This time, I told myself, I wouldn't interfere. If Jason wanted to help her, that was his choice. When he came to me again, repeating the same words as before, "Lena wants me to help her cheat during the exam," I just looked at him calmly. "That's your decision, Jason," I said quietly. "Do what you think is right," he blinked, confused. "You're not going to stop me?" I shook my head. "It's your life, Jason. You'll live with the consequences, not me." He hesitated, uncertain. He knew cheating was wrong. He was just too afraid to say no to her. In my past life, I had carried that burden for him, trying to protect him, but not this time. Just then, Lena appeared, radiant in her white sundress, sunlight glinting in her hair. She smiled sweetly, her voice light and innocent. "Hey, top of the class," she teased. "What a coincidence seeing you here." Jason's whole expression changed. He practically jumped, flustered and red-faced. "This is Emma," he said quickly. "She's just my neighbor." His words stung more than I wanted to admit, but I kept my face calm. Lena tilted her head. "Oh, I see." Then she smiled again, soft and knowing. "About what I asked before, can you help me?" Jason hesitated. "I want to," he murmured. "But Emma's mom and mine are close friends." "She might tell?" I stared at him in disbelief. He was actually using me as an excuse. "You don't have to worry about me," I said evenly. "I'm not interested in getting involved. If you want to help her, then help her. Just don't use me as your shield." Lena's lips curved in a tiny, victorious smile. "It's all right, Jason. If you don't want to help, just say so." Her gentle tone melted his resolve completely. "No, I'll help," he blurted. And just like that, the future began to repeat itself. But this time, I didn't stop it. I didn't plead, didn't argue. I just walked away, quietly, with my heart strangely calm. At home, I found my mother chatting with Mrs. Lee, Jason's mother. Mrs. Lee was bragging as always. "With my son's grades," she said proudly, "it'll be hard to choose between Harvard and MIT. He's just naturally gifted." My mother smiled politely, though I could sense her discomfort. "He's very smart," she said. "Emma tries her best too." Mrs. Lee's lips curved, that same polite smile that never reached her eyes. "That's good. She should aim for second place then. Maybe she can get into the same university as Jason." I wanted to laugh, but I simply said, I'll do my best, and went to my room. That night, as I sat under the soft glow of my lamp, I realized something. I wasn't living for Jason anymore. I wasn't living to prove anyone wrong. I was living for me. When the exam day came, I didn't think about Jason or Lena. I focused only on my paper, on the calm rhythm of my pen moving across the page. And for the first time in both my lives, I felt free. Later, when results came out, I learned that Jason and Lena had indeed passed, through their secret answers and whispered tricks. They were happy, believing they'd beaten the system. But deep down, I knew, every lie has its price. Mrs. Lee came over again, full of her usual pride. "My son found such a beautiful girlfriend," she said to my mother, beaming. "Emma's smart, but not quite like our Jason, This time my mother didn't let it pass. Her voice was calm, but her words were firm. "To me, my daughter is already the best," she said. "She doesn't need to compete with anyone." I looked at her then, my mother, who had always stood quietly in my shadow, and I smiled. In my previous life, I had spent so much time chasing after people who never truly saw me, but in this one, I finally saw myself, and that, I realized, was the beginning of my real rebirth. My mother stood beside me that morning, her voice steady and warm. "I can support my daughter for the rest of her life if I have to," she said. "And Mrs. Lee, I'd appreciate it if you stopped speaking about her that way." The words hung in the air like a clear bell. For once, Mrs. Lee had no reply. Her smile faltered, then stiffened as she forced out a polite laugh and changed the subject. But as she walked away, I could still hear her muttering under her breath. "She's just a girl. What's there to be proud of? My Jason's 10 times better." After that day, she seemed determined to prove it. Everywhere she went, she bragged about her son, the top student of the grade, the brilliant boy dating the most beautiful girl in school. A perfect couple, she'd boast, both aiming for Stanford. Her words traveled fast, until even a local TV station caught wind of the model pair. They decided to do a feature on them, an interview about young love and academic excellence. Of course, Mrs. Lee could hardly contain herself. She arranged for the filming to happen right in our neighborhood garden and invited everyone she knew. My parents and I were no exception. "Emma should come too," she said sweetly. "Let her get some exposure thanks to Jason." On the day of the interview, the garden was filled with people. Neighbors, children, the TV crew, everyone buzzing with excitement. Mrs. Lee stood before the camera, her face glowing with pride. "My son doesn't even study that much," she said modestly, though her eyes gleamed. "He's just naturally gifted. Honestly, it's not easy raising a child like him, too talented for his own good. When other parents talk about motivating their kids, I can't really relate." The crowd laughed politely. She smiled wider. "Of course," she continued, pretending fairness. "I'm not saying hard work isn't good. Diligence makes up for lack of talent. My best friend's daughter," she gestured toward me, "may not be as bright as my Jason, but she tries. With enough effort, she might even get into the same university as him someday." Her voice was syrupy sweet, but the sting in her words was sharp enough to draw blood. The neighbors murmured their admiration, all praises for Mrs. Lee and her brilliant son. Then the reporter turned the spotlight on Jason and Lena. "Jason and Lena," he said with a smile. "You two are quite the pair. Could you share some study tips with everyone watching?" Lena leaned into Jason, her hand slipping through his arm. They wore matching outfits, white shirts and soft beige tones, like characters from a commercial. Under the sunlight, they looked flawless. Jason smiled modestly. "My biggest study tip," he said, "is to help others. Before the entrance exam, I helped Lena review. It improved her grades and reinforced my own learning. It was the best decision I made in high school." Lena gazed up at him, eyes shining with admiration. They looked like a picture, the kind that would make anyone believe in young love. The neighbors clapped. Cameras flashed, and then, like a ripple through calm water, 2 little boys came running through the garden gate, shouting breathlessly, "The people from Stanford and Harvard are here. They're fighting over the top scorer, and the police are here too." The crowd gasped. Who could it be? Someone whispered. It has to be Jason, another said excitedly. Who else? He's the top student in the whole school. Mrs. Lee's smile stretched so wide it nearly reached her ears. Jason adjusted his collar, already looking like a man used to applause. Moments later, the admissions officers arrived. Formal suits, official papers in hand. Jason stepped forward confidently. So, he said lightly, what kind of offers are you making? But just so you know, wherever Lena goes, I go. You'll need to take her into account. The representatives exchanged puzzled glances. You are? One of them asked. Jason smiled. Jason Lee, top student of Westview High, the top scorer you're here for. A brief silence followed, and then one of the officers chuckled softly. Oh, he said kindly. There must be a misunderstanding. We're not here for you. The top scorer this year is a girl. Emma Song. Time stopped. Jason froze mid-smile. The crowd fell utterly silent. For a heartbeat, I could hear nothing. Not the wind, not the murmurs. Only the pounding of my own heart. Then my mother's shriek broke the stillness. It's my daughter. My Emma is the top scorer. She turned to my father, trembling with joy. Pinch me, she whispered, laughing through tears. I think I'm dreaming. He grinned, eyes glistening. It's real, he said. It's real. Around us, the garden filled with stunned faces. The same people who'd been praising Mrs. Lee now stared in disbelief. Mrs. Lee's face drained of color. There must be a mistake, she said sharply. That's impossible. My son's grades are always better than hers. You must have mixed them up. The admissions officer shook his head gently. Ma'am, these results are official. We don't make errors in such matters. Whispers spread through the crowd, soft, incredulous, and growing louder by the second. Mrs. Lee's eyes darted wildly. No, she insisted. She must have cheated. She's a girl. How could she be the top scorer? My father stepped forward, his voice firm and furious. Mrs. Lee, that's enough. My daughter's the top scorer of the city. Tell me, who could she have copied from to achieve that? But Mrs. Lee wouldn't stop. She switched their papers. She stole his score, she cried. The Harvard representative finally intervened, his voice calm but cold. Ma'am, he said, even if Emma weren't the top scorer, your son still wouldn't be. He's not in the top 50 this year. Neither he nor Miss Lena qualifies for our universities. The words landed like stones in water, ripples of shock spreading through every face in the crowd. Jason's proud expression shattered. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Mrs. Lee stumbled back, pale as chalk. No, that's impossible, she whispered. You must have made a mistake. She must have done something. Her voice broke off as a group of police officers entered the garden. Hope flickered briefly in her eyes. She rushed toward them. Officers, please. Arrest that girl. Emma Song. She cheated and stole my son's results. Jason tried to pull her back, his voice cracking. Mom, stop! But she wouldn't listen. Don't be afraid, Jason. The police will make this right. The lead officer looked at her quietly. Jason Lee? He asked. Yes, that's my son, she said quickly. The top student of Westview High. The officer exchanged a glance with his colleagues, then said evenly, That's quite a coincidence. We're here to investigate a cheating case, but the ones involved aren't Emma Song. They're Jason Lee and Lena Chen. The world seemed to hold its breath. Mrs. Lee's eyes went wide. Jason froze where he stood, his color draining. The officer continued calmly. Our investigation shows that you two exchanged answers during the college entrance exam. You're both under suspicion of academic fraud. Please come with us. Gasps filled the garden. The cameras kept rolling, though no one remembered to stop them. Mrs. Lee looked as though her knees might give out. Her perfect image, the proud mother of a prodigy, crumbled in front of everyone. Jason's voice trembled. No, this isn't happening. He turned to me suddenly, his face twisted with anger and shame. This was you, wasn't it? You reported me. No one else knew I planned to help Lena cheat, only you. If it wasn't you, then who? I looked at him quietly, my heart strangely calm. For once, I didn't feel pity. In my previous life, I had loved him more than he ever deserved. I had defended him, believed in him, even as he destroyed me. But this time I didn't need to explain, or justify, or prove anything. I simply met his gaze and said softly, "Jason, not everything that happens to you is someone else's fault." And then, as the officers led him away, I realized that for the first time, the past had truly let me go. Mrs. Lee didn't turn her anger toward Lena, the girl who had asked her son to cheat, but toward me, as if I were the cause of everything. Her finger trembled as she jabbed it in my face, her voice sharp and shaking. "Emma Song, how could you be so cruel? Just because my son liked another girl, you had to ruin his future? You're heartless! I treated you like my own. And this is how you repay me?" Her words cut through the air, each one louder than the last, until she was nearly screaming. She even took a step toward me, but my father quickly stepped between us, his expression dark with anger. "Enough," he said firmly, pushing her back just enough to stop her advance. The police stood quietly nearby, their faces unreadable. One of them finally spoke, his voice calm but cold. "No one reported your son, ma'am. The entire exam hall was under surveillance. Every move was recorded. He wasn't caught because someone told on him. He was caught because the cameras saw everything." Mrs. Lee froze. The color drained from her face. The officer continued, almost with pity. "Trying to cheat on a national exam. That's not clever. It's foolish. His downfall was of his own making." Jason's anger seemed to evaporate in that moment. His shoulders sagged, and the fight left his eyes. He didn't resist when the officers took him away. He just walked silently, his face pale and empty, like a boy who had suddenly aged years in a single hour. The bitter irony wasn't lost on anyone. Mrs. Lee had called the police herself, and now they were the ones leading her son away. What started as a proud interview about a model student couple had turned into a nationwide scandal. The reporters, sensing a story too juicy to ignore, swung their cameras toward me. The same spotlight that was supposed to glorify Jason now illuminated me instead. How strange, I thought. Mrs. Lee had once insisted I show my face to the world only because of her son's success. Well, she got what she wanted, just not in the way she'd imagined. I ended up choosing Stanford. Jason wasn't sentenced to prison, but all of his results were nullified, and he was banned from taking the college entrance exam for 3 years. Lena faced the same punishment. In my previous life, I had stopped Jason from cheating. He'd gone on to become the city's top scorer, the pride of the neighborhood. But this time I didn't interfere. He got exactly what he'd wanted. He helped Lena. And in doing so, he destroyed his own future. The once brilliant boy everyone had admired became a name whispered with pity and ridicule. His mother's hunger for attention had made things worse. The interview, the bragging, the TV crew. It was all recorded, all online. There was no hiding from the truth now. At first, Jason tried to convince himself it didn't matter. "So what if I can't go to college?" he said one afternoon when we crossed paths. "I still have Lena. It was worth it." But when his eyes caught the metal around my neck, something flickered there. Envy, regret, maybe even shame. He tried to cover it with a smirk. "So what if you're the top scorer?" he said lightly. "I've been first plenty of times in high school. You only know how to study. Even if you go to Stanford, what difference will it make? You'll still end up ordinary." Once I might have believed him. But now, with memories of my past life, the success, the independence, the peace, I simply smiled. Let him talk. He needed to believe those lies more than I needed to deny them. He grew irritated at my silence. "At least I still have Lena," he said stubbornly. "If I can trade 3 years of my life for her love, it's worth it." I almost pitied him. Naive boy. The pressure of senior year crushes most people. Retaking the exam once is hard enough. 3 years later? Almost impossible. But I didn't argue. I just said quietly, "I hope all your dreams come true." Then I turned and walked away. Not long after, I heard shouting outside his house. Lena stormed out, her eyes red, a fresh handprint bright on her cheek. "Lena!" Jason rushed after her, panicked. "What happened?" "What do you think happened?" she spat. "Your crazy mother, that's what." She blames me for everything. I can't live like this anymore. Jason, if this continues, we're over. Before he could answer, Mrs. Lee came charging out, her voice like a whip. Jason, break up with her. She's brought nothing but bad luck. Look at what she's done to you. Jason looked mortified, trapped between them. Then Mrs. Lee's eyes found me, and in an instant her anger melted into sugary sweetness. Emma, dear, she said, her tone suddenly gentle. You're such a good girl. Smart, hard-working, perfect for my Jason. You're even going to Stanford. When he gets in 3 years later, you can look after him, right? The absurdity almost made me laugh. Jason looked away, pretending not to care, but the flush on his face betrayed him. I forced a polite smile. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lee, I said softly, but I'm not interested. What I really wanted to say was, I don't like fools. Before anyone could react, Lena let out a sharp laugh. Oh, please. That's rich. Your son can't even get into college, and you think someone like Emma would want him? That's hilarious. Mrs. Lee's face turned crimson with rage. You ruined him. If it weren't for you, my son. Your son ruined himself, Lena interrupted coolly. He made his choices. He was old enough to know what cheating meant. Don't blame me for the consequences. Jason's face went pale. Her words hit him harder than any slap could. For a long moment, he said nothing. When Lena finally left, she threw one last warning over her shoulder. You have 3 days to fix things with your mother. If you don't, we're done. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement, leaving Jason standing there in silence. That was the last time I saw them together. By September, I had started university. This time, everything went smoother. My grades were higher, my path clearer. I still chose software engineering, partly because it was familiar, partly because it felt right. 4 years passed quietly, peacefully. The year I graduated happened to be the same year Jason was allowed to retake the college entrance exam. When I visited home that summer, I saw Mrs. Lee again in the neighborhood square. She was wearing heavy makeup and a bright red dress, smiling too brightly as she talked to anyone who'd listen. My son's taking the exam again. He's definitely getting into Stanford this time. When he's admitted, I'll host a big party. You're all invited. But no one paid her much attention. Some were playing chess, others were just passing by. The warmth she used to command had faded long ago. Then she spotted me. Emma, she called, hurrying over. You're back. You graduated, right? How's life at Stanford? My son's applying there too. Could you help him with his forms? You're so capable, dear. Before I could answer, my mother appeared beside me, calm and composed. Oh, Mrs. Lee, she said kindly, you must be joking. Emma's just a student. She doesn't know much about admissions. You should hire a professional for that. Her voice was soft but final. Mrs. Lee's smile faltered, and for the first time, she didn't have a reply. I simply stood there, quiet and polite, feeling nothing but a faint, distant ache, like watching the end of a story I'd already lived once before. This time, though, I wasn't the same girl. I didn't need revenge. I already had peace. After a long silence, Mrs. Lee forced a shaky laugh. Fine, she said, waving her hand as if brushing away an invisible cloud. I won't argue. It's my son's big day. I won't let anything spoil my mood. Her voice tried to sound cheerful, but there was a fragile tremor underneath, like a thread ready to snap. And yet, her joy came too early. From the gate of the neighborhood, a familiar figure appeared, Jason. He wore a faded jacket, exam folder hanging loosely from his hand. His shoulders slumped, and his eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Even from afar, the defeat in his walk was unmistakable. Jason, Mrs. Lee called out, her face lighting up. You're back! How was the exam? Was it easy for you? But as he came closer, her smile faltered. Something was wrong. Wait, she said, frowning. It's not even time for the exam to end. Why are you home so early? Jason stopped in front of her, his expression hollow. I couldn't write the essay, he said quietly. I couldn't come up with anything, so I handed in a blank paper. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Mrs. Lee's eyes widened. Her knees gave out beneath her, and she crumpled to the ground. A blank paper? She whispered, her voice trembling. How could you be so reckless? Without the essay points, how will you ever get into Stanford? Jason rubbed his temples, frustration clouding his face. "I don't even want to take the rest of the exams," he muttered. "Forget it." Mrs. Lee's wail tore through the air, loud, broken, desperate. But Jason didn't turn back. He just walked away, leaving her sobbing on the pavement. On the way home, my mother told me what had happened to him over the years. Jason had regretted his choices long ago, but his life had been nothing but a slow collapse ever since. After failing the first time, he'd taken $200,000, his mother's entire retirement savings, to start a cafe. It failed within months. Every cent vanished. Then he started delivering food, trying to make ends meet. One day, during a delivery to a hotel, he ran into Lena with another man. Something inside him snapped. In a blind rage, he attacked the man and ended up paying $10,000 in compensation. Lena broke up with him soon after. Her words, my mother said, were cruel but honest. "Sure, I can't take the college exam either," she told him. "But at least I still have my looks. You, Jason, you have nothing. Your life's already ruined. I still have a future. And your mother? I can't stand her. She treats me like her enemy. How could we ever have a future together?" From that day on, Lena never came back. After she left, Jason changed. He locked himself in his room and began studying again, obsessively, as if trying to claw back the years he'd thrown away. There was still 1 year left before he could retake the exam, but his mind was unstable. The anger that had nowhere to go began turning inward, and toward the only person left near him. He shouted often. Broke things. Sometimes he hit her. Mrs. Lee started showing up with bruises, her face swollen, her arms mottled with purple marks. When people asked, she would smile stiffly and say she'd fallen. Maybe it was shame, maybe it was denial, or maybe she still believed her son could be saved if she just endured a little longer. During one of his outbursts, Jason screamed, "If you hadn't bullied Lena all the time, she never would have left me. It's all your fault we broke up." Those words, I'd heard them before. In my past life, he'd said almost the same thing to me. No matter how much time passed, Jason never changed. To him, every failure was someone else's fault. And yet this time, Mrs. Lee hadn't even done anything unforgivable. She had simply hated Lena. A normal human reaction for a mother watching her son's future fall apart. Jason could have made things right. He could have left home with Lena, or asked his mother to stop interfering. She would have listened. He was her only son, but instead he did nothing. He hid behind guilt, manipulating Lena with the same words he once used on me. "I gave up everything for you." When she finally walked away, it wasn't because of Mrs. Lee, it was because of him. Mrs. Lee endured everything for 1 more year. The coming exam became her last thread of hope. She told herself her son was still the same gifted boy he once was, the one who'd topped every test with ease. She believed that once he entered Stanford, all their suffering would vanish. 2 days before the exam, she dressed up, applied bright lipstick, and bragged to the neighbors, "My son's going to ace the test this time. Once he's admitted, I'll finally be able to hold my head high again." But she was wrong. Her mistake wasn't love, it was blindness. She didn't understand that genius needs discipline, that talent fades without effort. Jason had once been surrounded by brilliant teachers, driven classmates, and endless practice. Now, he was just a lonely young man with a broken past and fading memories of formulas and essays long forgotten. When the results came out, her dreams turned to dust. Jason failed. After that, he locked himself in his room for days. The small glimmer of hope he'd clung to, his belief that a new exam could fix his broken life, was gone. And then came the final blow. Lena, the girl he'd sacrificed everything for, had become a sensation. She had reinvented herself as an influencer. Her beauty drew millions of followers. Within a year, she was living in a 3-story villa, a life most could only dream of. Jason's one path had closed. Hers had only widened. She had been right all along. Her beauty gave her another chance. Jason, however, had no more chances left. One quiet evening, he took a knife and slipped out of the house. The next morning, the news spread like wildfire. A popular influencer had been found dead in her luxury home. By the 3rd day, Jason was caught. When I heard he wanted to see me, I went. Not out of pity, but because I needed to see the end of it. The man who once destroyed my life brought to the lowest point of his own. He was thinner now, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling as he tried to wipe his tears. "Emma," he whispered, "why didn't you stop me this time?" I almost laughed. The sound came out cold and sharp. "Stop you?" I said. "Last time I stopped you. And how did you repay me? You left me to die in labor. You let me suffer until my last breath. Why would I stop you again? So you could kill me a second time?" He shook his head violently, crying harder. No, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for it to—" "Jason," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Both Lena and I gave you chances. You could have changed in your past life. You could have chosen honesty, kindness, love, but you didn't. You always blamed others. You never once looked at yourself." Each word tore through him like glass. The excuses he'd hidden behind crumbled, leaving him naked before his own truth. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head, screaming, sobbing like a man haunted by his own reflection. The guards came soon after, dragging him away. That was the last time I saw him. Jason was sentenced to death. Not long after, Mrs. Lee followed him. Her body simply gave up, her soul too tired to go on. As for me, that chapter of my life finally closed. Jason's death carried away the shadows of my past life. The pain, the betrayal, the injustice. Now my world is different. My classmates are kind, my mentor believes in me, and my parents love me deeply. For the first time, I am free. And as I look toward the horizon, I realize my beautiful life, the one that truly belongs to me, has only just begun.